Hey guys, thanks so much for having us. First of all, thanks to Jason and Sora Ventures. This is an absolutely amazing event so far, so let's give a big round of applause to them. Awesome, well, let's start with the intros. My name is Nate Whitehall. I'm the CEO and co-founder of CryptoSlate. We're a comprehensive and contextualized source for crypto news, insights, and data. Although we have the word crypto in our name, Bitcoin is the most important asset. Bitcoin is the #1 asset. So about 30 to 40% of our coverage right now focuses just on Bitcoin, what's happening from an on-chain perspective, adoption, regulatory. So thanks so much. Let's get started with intros.
Yeah, I'm John Ennis, CEO of NeoSwap. And at NeoSwap, our vision is to make assets as spendable as cash. And it's really in line, you think about Bitcoin as kind of frontal attack on the Fed, but an indirect attack is to have assets involved more in transactions, so you don't need money as much. And that will also weaken the power of the Fed, so that's part of the philosophical goal there. We are live on Bitcoin and Solana, and we can get into why those two chains later. And so happy to talk to you about what we're doing in NeoSwap.
Hi guys, I'm Naqib, GM. Good afternoon as well. I'm the co-founder for Ordzaar as well. So Ordzaar is the a permissionless launchpad where it kind of creates a new form of technology where artists can just launch artwork without pre-inscribe and wasting a lot of money, and then users can actually use and mint, and they are the one that inscribe. For us as well, we focus on different kinds of target market. In the space, apparently recently degens came in and became a degen central. But on the bigger picture, for us, we're still working on pushing cultures and histories and getting to work with government bodies to adopt Ordinals on the same pace as well.
Hi, I'm Toby Lewis, a co-founder of OrdinalsBot. We were the first group to automate putting inscriptions on chain. We've really doubled down from there, so we love sort of connecting with most of the builders in this space. A lot of them have tried out like all our various API products, and we love building builder tooling, as well as having an easy front end for people to do inscriptions and building out a whole series of products.
GM, I'm Robin, the CEO and co-founder of Liquidium, and we're building the leading ordinal lending platform where you can use all kinds of Bitcoin assets, ordinals, BRC20, and borrow Bitcoin against them, or you can be the lender and lend Bitcoin, earn some yield, native Bitcoin. All of this is on layer 1 Bitcoin using DLCs and PSPPs. We have been building since February and are in open beta since early this week. Just crossed 1 million in loan volume and going up from there.
Thank you so much, guys. All right, let's get into it. How do Bitcoin ordinals differ fundamentally from traditional NFT platforms like what's on Ethereum, and especially regarding on-chain data storage and immutability?
Well, yeah, I would say that the durability is a huge differentiator. And I think we just had a discussion in this previous session about how much value is going to get sucked over to Bitcoin. I mean, part of why we're on Bitcoin and Solana is I see it as everything that's valuable where durability matters, or you're going to build on a chain that you want to know that's going to be there forever, that's going to go to Bitcoin. And then you have other use cases where interoperability and performance are important, and maybe the durability is less important. And I think that will go probably to Solana, maybe Avalanche, other chains. I don't actually see a big future for Ethereum. I think it's stuck in the middle, fighting this kind of two-sided war against Bitcoin and the lighter weight chains. So in terms of the technical side of it, I think that we're just beginning to see more and more things that can be done with the data that's stored directly on chain. And we saw the recursions last year. You've got parent-child dependencies. You've got, well, I'm really excited about runes. Casey's talk today got me really pumped on runes. So you have all of these use cases coming from storing data directly on chain that are really tied together with durability. And I think you're just going to see massive migration of value over to Bitcoin as a result.
For my end, in terms of like use cases and adoption, right? So Ordinals itself has a self-strong trait for preservation. When you put something on chain, it's immutable for life, right? I'm not going to touch on about IPFS and all that crap. I think a lot of people know about it. I'm going to touch on how it can be a fundamental use case on Web2 aspect or even on cultural aspect. For example, when it comes to, it's easier for me to pitch ordinals and how you can preserve data or art or history and culture on chain to like a government body. Like for example, I think some of you know that I partner with the Bali government to be the one to kind of preserve their art and culture and heritage. They have like 1,000-over-year-old artifacts, like a weapon called Chris. It's like it's a Nusantara weapon, and we plan to onboard all this data into on-chain. Right? It's not just about the art. It's not about everything. It's also part of preservation of something. That's easier for you to pitch to government compared to IPFS.
How about you, Toby? Why did you choose to develop on Ordinals?
Yeah, no, well, 100% because of that IPFS Arweave debate, it sort of instinctively, so completely disagree with Naqib. It kind of like it just seemed to me that having the stuff storing onto Bitcoin, onto an individual SAT, just makes so much more sense. There's that great example of like the FTX NFTs that became the product of the US government, right? Like all the owners suddenly had like, your NFT is the property of the US government. The stuff is completely decentralized, stored on Bitcoin. That was the first building block that really enticed us. And then firstly, like everyone in pretty much the world knows what Bitcoin is. Try and ask a man on the street what IPFS or Arweave are, and you won't get a good answer.
And you, Robin, why did you choose to develop on Bitcoin as opposed to any other eco?
Yeah, I think that Bitcoin is kind of the dinosaur that nobody used, right? Like, was just sitting in everybody's ledger or hardware wallet and like just sitting there without doing anything. Like they maybe did like 2-3 Bitcoin transactions a year to buy Bitcoin or something. But I think there was like no real use case except you lived like in El Salvador or something and bought coffee with it. And now like having this giant of a blockchain that is the most secure and decentralized blockchain in the world, just sitting there without having any utility just is like, it is a no-brainer to develop utility for it, right? And now you have like, when we always wanted to build something as close to Bitcoin as possible to give Bitcoin more utility and kind of to unlock the value that is in Bitcoin. And when we heard about Ordinals and that basically other assets are coming to this mother chain in a way where it's like extremely immutable, extremely secure, and we can build a DeFi protocol on top of Bitcoin using these alternative assets as a use case like a collateral in our lending example, and then unlocking the true value of Bitcoin for that, where people can actually put their Bitcoin to work. Yeah, it was just a no-brainer for us. I think like this is basically the revolution of the entire crypto space, where you can literally put like all of the tested stuff we had on all other chains now on the main chain and like put real value to it.
Amazing. So tell me about what were the key technical challenges in developing on Ordinals and how did you guys address them?
Well, the thing about Bitcoin is that it's really built for transfer. I mean, it's built, this peer-to-peer cash system, and so it's very good at making transfers, but it's also very restricted. And the need to specify particular UTXOs is a real problem when you're trying to do more complex things. Like at NeoSwap, we're trying to do these multi-way trades. We want people to be able to make bids that are fairly general, not just on specific items, but on categories of items and this kind of thing. And so we have done, one of our tools is called a smart auction, where you have a group of items you're going to sell to a crowd. You want to do that most efficiently. We've done hundreds of those on Bitcoin. That's been the use case we've been able to leverage most easily. Really, what we're doing now is we're waiting to see more and more of the developer tools come live on Bitcoin, so that we can do some of the more complex things that we're doing, for example, on Solana, where you have fully expressive smart contracts. It's much easier to do things. And I think as the Bitcoin ecosystem matures and as you see more and more efficient tools come along, like one of the things I really like about Runes is the ability to send, you'll be able to send multiple amounts of different Rune tokens at the same time in a single transaction. Those are the kinds of tools that we're looking for to be able to realize our full vision on Bitcoin.
I think for myself, it in terms of, Bitcoin has been pretty like non-progressive for a very long time. And when I think most of us here that want to start on building something on Bitcoin, especially on Ordinals, there's so much lack of infrastructure, like SDKs, toolkits, and so on and so forth. And we have to build everything from scratch. Like I myself came from the Ethereum space as well for a couple of years, working in network, kind of. So you use smart contracts, right? So using Web3.js, use smart contracts, but building on Bitcoin as a whole, it was really, really challenging. So in terms of how, like for example, Ordzaar, right? We need to find a way to kind of make a transaction when a user mint or an art is done, and when people inscribe on mint, there's no toolkit for them to rebuild everything back. And on top of that, when it comes to the file size that you want to work with certain Web2 companies or projects, it's a big, big block, right? For us, thankfully we have people like the Cyberpunk Labs, you know, they can help to lower the compression files and maintain that specific quality at the same time. Because like some artifacts that are being scanned are like worth 11,000 kilobytes, like this 11 MB, 20 MB and stuff like that. You cannot inscribe that at all because of 4 MB size, right? So you have to compress, and more technologies are coming in. Like Danny, if he's here, shout out to him for doing like recursive. There are the toolkits that people are building to further compress and compress and compress by keeping the quality as good as it is. Yes.
Yeah, and I think one of the really good things about Ordinals and Bitcoin is it's a completely blue ocean for developers, right? Like it's amazing for us building developer tooling, and we can look at stuff that's been done on other chains and think about how it can be improved. And I guess in the early days of when we were the first to automate it, like Brian spoke quite well last night, and a lot of you know my colleague Bruff and David are here as well. But like he was talking about like effectively the reason why OrdinalsBot got built is it was so hard for him as a very tech savvy guy to be able to run a node, sequence the org client. So then we chucked it up, and people loved the tool for that because it just made it really, really easy in the early days. Now we've got this, like, what I love is how fast, like, everything is being built, right? I remember being in Ethereum space in 2016, 2018, and like, really, the on-chain activity was very, very limited, right? Like, we needed to wait until, like, 2020, 2021 for DeFi summer for a lot of the use cases in crypto to take off on those other chains. In the 8 months that Ordinals have been taking place, you've got, like, the main NFT exchange, the main token exchange, all sorts of different things that it took until 2020 to be developed in Ethereum. So in some ways you could say like the Bitcoin space has done in 8 months what it took 5 years for the most progressive chain to do. So I'm super pumped about that.
Rob. And you, Robin, what were the technical challenges of building on Ordinals?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question because so we started building an NFT lending platform about 1.5 years ago on Stacks, built the first NFT lending platform on Stacks. And we had smart contracts there, right? Like this is a side chain to Bitcoin and was fairly easy to build, very, very like comprehensible smart contracts. And when we first dug into Bitcoin in February, there was nothing, right? Like there weren't even marketplaces for Ordinals. It was literally people chilling in Discord, in the Ordinal Rocks Discord, saying, hey, I'm paying 3 Bitcoin for this rock image, and please just send it to my address, and I'm sending you 3 Bitcoin, and then using Google Spreadsheets to see like what the price is or something like that. Like it was crazy, and basically we had to figure everything out in the beginning. And PSPTs were kind of the first thing that you come across. I think it's part of the Bitcoin JS library, and you can fairly easily build PSPTs if you kind of dig into it enough. but obviously, like you haven't had use cases like this. And then in our case, we are a lending platform, which means if a loan starts, the collateral of the loan has to be stored somewhere. And a PSPT only allows you to have like an immediate transaction. So we didn't want to build a custodial platform, right? So we had to dig deeper into this, and we came across something called discrete log contracts, DLCs in short. And at the time, I think nobody really used DLCs because there was no use case, at least like if you talk about an entire layer 1 use case. And it is a primitive technology that was like built in 2017. And we thought, okay, this is actually perfect for creating a non-custodial trustless escrow on Bitcoin, and researched more about it. Worked with a partner to enable ordinals with these DLCs. And a DLC basically is a Bitcoin wallet that nobody has the private keys to, and can receive, hold, and send Bitcoin, but only to the addresses that created the DLC. So in our case, the borrower and the lender create the DLC, and then basically the ordinal is held in the DLC during the loan, and then there are two possible outcomes. If the borrower repays the loan, the ordinal goes back to the borrower. If not, the ordinal goes to the lender. And it's a beautiful system, but you have to, like, in the beginning, you really had to research what technologies there are on Bitcoin that you can use to create, like, non-custodial DeFi applications. So I think all in all, like, it is, like Toby said, like a kind of a blue ocean for developers, but you have to find everything for the first time and see like what technologies already exist that you can leverage to build something.
Absolutely. So speaking of Ocean, let's talk about Luke Dash Jr. and Ocean wanting to censor. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I mean, first off, the whole point of Bitcoin is permissionless commerce. So it doesn't make any sense to me to try to determine which sorts of transactions should be allowed or not. I mean, that's the spirit of Bitcoin. I think more generally, maxis are too focused on money. They don't realize that commerce is really about the exchange of goods and services, and money is a means to the end of that happening. But once you have assets moving around, you don't necessarily have to always go through that step of selling and then buying. You can have transfers of assets, transfers of money happening all at the same time. It can be a more efficient form of commerce. So I think the maxis have kind of lost the forest for the trees, where they're so focused on money, they're forgetting about commerce. And it should be that consenting adults should be able to transact as long as they're not doing anything, illegal. By the way, I don't think money laundering should be a crime either. I think that drug use is a crime or whatever, but like, it's no one's business when adults are transacting. And it's the same way here when it comes to, it's the same way here, that if you want to inscribe these data into the blockchain, it's just, I mean, it should be a free country. You should be able to just do it, and you don't need permission.
I think that, Bitcoin is supposed to prevent censorship, and you have this dumb ass talk about censorship. It's a hypocrisy as well. That's what I say.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic, right? Like we're talking like every week to various different mining groups. Like they're super excited, right? Like this is the first time you've had a proper fee market on Bitcoin, right? So like the amount of hash power that is talking to us and all the different groups here is astonishing, right? Like as a developer talking to all these multi-billion-dollar like proper businesses that have been going since like Satoshi's time, right? Like it's amazing how you can be sort of like talking to the real corridors of power in Bitcoin, right? And so I don't think any of them, all of them are looking at this going, this is great. And actually, like if you dive into like how Bitcoin mining works, a lot of those miners are going to be underwater come the next halving, right? Like they're all having to restructure at the moment because they leveraged up to buy machines, and they need that fee market to actually be a solvent business in most cases, right? Like some have been a bit lighter on debt or whatever, like Marathon, but like basically like the Bitcoin mining market is broken if Ordinals and the wider Bitcoin utility space doesn't exist. So I think Dash is just a laughing stock, really.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin didn't have a lot of innovations since 2017. So Taproot and SegWit was kind of the last major innovation to Bitcoin until Ordinals came, right? And Ordinals attracted so many developers and so many VCs and so many creative minds finally working on Bitcoin that we finally see innovation happening. We have had Lightning and stuff like that for a while now, but let's be honest, like it is still not the perfect like layer 2 for transactions that we all have wished for. And we want more innovation to happen, but if nobody's building on Bitcoin, if there is no need for like faster transactions and lower transaction costs and stuff like that, why would somebody need it? Like if there's no economical, like I guess incentive, why would you do it? And Ordinals really brought that, because now if you're like pushing transaction fees to a really, really high fee environment, now suddenly ZK rollups that make Bitcoin more programmable, faster, and cheaper, and also other layer 2 solutions, like these become economically viable. Like there isn't a real incentive to build more stuff for Bitcoin and to innovate on Bitcoin again. And taking this beauty away from Bitcoin and introducing censorship to Bitcoin, which is like the opposite of why Bitcoin has been built, is just stupid in my opinion. So I don't get why you would want to do it unless it's like really you're treating Bitcoin like this religion that was perfect from day one and no change can be done to Bitcoin and you're just like making Bitcoin worse by innovating on it. Unless you have this opinion, I think like doesn't make sense to take Ordinals away from Bitcoin.
I want to add on a bit about what Toby and Robin said, right? So in 2020 itself, I think a lot of miners, the one that I know of, a lot of them left to move to Ethereum because they just couldn't pay the fees. It's so expensive, right? The bills are high and stuff like that. And at this point, in March or sorry, in May this year, a lot of them actually reached out to me back, like, what's all this stuff like that? And is it worth it for me? Is it okay for me to come back and mine? Can I make money? And then they did actually come back. So all these miners that left to go back to go to Ethereum, to Solana or whatever, to just try to make more money on mining or staking at this point of time, are coming back. You know, so this increase for the decentralization of how Bitcoin is supposed to be. Yes, this one.
Speaking of the halving too, what effect do you guys think the halving will have on ordinal development? Earlier, we heard Casey talking about runes being deployed around the halving time. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think that as far as the halving goes, that ordinals are, I mean, that's another argument in favor of ordinals, because you were going to have miners now with half the reward, and they were going to be even more underwater. And so it just seems asinine to me to not appreciate ordinals if you value Bitcoin.
I think like what John said, when it comes to the halving itself, Bitcoin will be the innovation of the next boom. Because every cycle, every 4 years, I think the last halving, it took 19 months for Bitcoin to reach an all-time high. And the last cycle, I think 16 months, right? And back then, it was being driven, the narrative was driven by mainly Ethereum, like the DeFi summer, the NFT boom and stuff like that. So during this halving, when people see that what honors is going on, I mean, I'm very bullish on honors in the sense that for the first time after years, Bitcoin is going to be the movement to this time drive the narrative for the boom. If, I mean, not financial advice, but I mean, you know, no, that's because in DeFi, if you look at Ethereum, right, what's building is already being done. Like DeFi is being done. Right? What people are building now is the ZK rollups, and it's done. And then there's the next big thing is DID. And the ID is just more like application for people who have this identity, and then there's a account instruction to it. It's not a big catalyst, right? So the big catalyst will be Ordinals. And people go like, holy crap, this is something cool, and stuff like that. And you have people on board, and you have real artists, and so the bees just got into shrooms as well, right? So more and more Web2 are looking into Ordinals to see a platform that this is a new technology that can adopt. So that's why I'm more bullish on Ordinals.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this is like felt like for us crypto summer, and I talk with some of my crypto friends, and they still think it's crypto winter, right? Like it's kind of like I remember they at the OrdinalsBot team they called me like the resident degen because I kind of like I leaned into BRC20 in a big way and was like just going, guys, we've got to move much faster on this area, right? Because like you could literally trade a BRC20 back in May and double your money overnight or whatever, right? Obviously, yeah, you could 100x, 30x. It was just insane, right? And so sadly we were a bit slow in catching that wave because we took like a week to respond to it. But like it was like other teams were like rushing hard. But now we've been like, what I think will happen is we're getting like, next year is the true year of Bitcoin utility. I really actually disagreed with most of what the last panel was saying, right? Like about like leaning into the meme coins. I actually kind of feel, I love meme coins, I love all of that stuff, but like I think like at its heart, speculation is in the entire history of like the tech industry and innovation itself, right? It's always, innovation is always driven by speculation, which drives the building blocks, and then you see the utility, right? So we might call SATs a meme coin, but people are tweeting about like, effectively it's like the in-house token of Unisat, but because they can't do a token, that's what it is, right? Like, so I think there is a utility element being developed in a lot of these things, and even like Doge or whatever, right? Like remember the articles about like Elon funding the Doge team to try and build some utility there, right? Like, so I think like stuff can even start as a meme, but then like Bitcoin, people need to begin to build a use case on it, because what is Bitcoin different to gold or cash if it isn't having utility on top of it? And the same will happen with a successful meme coin ecosystem as much as a normal token ecosystem.
And Bitcoin is in a meme back then. It's just internet money, right?
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like Ordinals, BRC20, Runes, and the halving were somehow meant to be together in this order that it came, and like the halving is basically or Ordinals were a blessing, and the time of Ordinals launching and projects developing on Bitcoin with Ordinals was perfectly aligned with the upcoming halving, in my opinion. Because basically, think about it. Builders had 1 year to develop their protocols and platforms right now, and eventually these builders potentially want to launch a token, want to leverage on the trend of Bitcoin going up, which is usually around the halving. So basically 1 year of phase where we had time to build, and now there is the halving coming, which is most of the time the beginning of the bull market, and now we can like really use what we have built and kind of leverage on that and see like the bull market growing with these newly developed protocols and products. And I think right around the Bitcoin halving, not only Runes will come up, but also a lot of very, very good protocols in the space will launch their tokens. And these tokens can be real utility tokens and can enable stuff that you have never seen on other chains. Think about it. There are protocols in Bitcoin right now, like ordinal platforms, that generate native Bitcoin in revenue, right? So if you have a token that has the utility of a revenue split or a revenue share, where the revenue goes back to the token holders, suddenly you can have these people that have the tokens earn native Bitcoin from the protocol. And that's like massive. That's basically passive Bitcoin income on these utility tokens on platforms. So I'm not commenting on if we launch a token, but I think it's definitely a very, very interesting environment.
Okay, I want to get into some individual questions now. John, can you tell me how NeoSwap leverages Ordinals specifically?
Well, yeah, so far we've been doing the smart auctions, and the idea there, and this again gets back to the benefit of blockchain and how it makes new types of commerce possible. Now, these auctions are not yet fully on chain. This is something that we want to do. Actually, using DLCs will be helpful for that. But the idea there is if you have a collection of ordinals you want to sell to a crowd of people, the current ways of doing those auctions are inefficient. You can either do the auction off those items one at a time, and then often people will not bid on the early items because they're waiting for the later items. Okay, and actually in retrospect they would have put a winning bid on the first item. Or you auction the items all at once, and then people have to just pick or choose a few to focus on. And in our world, you can set a limit on how much you want to spend, you can set a limit on how many items you want to buy, and then you can bid on every item you like. In fact, you can bid on every item that's up for auction. Okay, so as I mentioned, we've done hundreds of those. Now, we also have other tools that are live on Solana that we're working on. We have a new tool actually called Collection Swap. And this would be, suppose that you have a bunch, you've got Bitcoin Frog, several Bitcoin Frogs, you'd like to get OCM 300. Well, right now, if you take that frog and you sell it on the open market, you're going to basically take a hit because you're going to be selling into the market. And then when you go and buy the OCM at floor, you're going to take a hit again. So whenever you have a big spread, you end up paying a cost by going through money. And we have a tool, which will be live on Solana very shortly, where we're going to be able to match up buyers and sellers and be able to do these transactions without so much of the passing through money step. And as the tools mature on Ordinals, we'll be able to bring that the same functionality to Ordinals. So I think that in the next 6 months, you'll see a lot more NeoSwap functionality on Ordinals.
Fantastic, thank you. And Naqib, how do you envision Ordzaar shaping the future of Ordinals?
For Ordzaar itself, right, Ordzaar started as a place where I just built for fun, you know, to be free, a place where artists that doesn't have the upfront cash to inscribe things into Ordinals itself, right? It's just a place where artists can just draw and they can just put it up and people can buy and mint and inscribe. But other vision that I have is all about understanding how to grow Ordinals within the outside of the whole Web3 ecosystem. We already have a lot of amazing guys pushing Ordinals within the Web3 ecosystem, right? But no one is actually pushing Ordinals out to other Web3 space. And for myself, and for Ordzaar itself, we have the DJs having fun in Ordzaar, playing and like buying and minting and just, you know, doing stuff. But on the, like I said earlier, on the other hand, we have a couple of things in line, like the partnership, right? So what happened, just a quick rundown what happened with what we are doing in the public government is we are doing 3 parts. We are kind of using Ordinals to preserve the art and culture. That's the first part. The second part is Bali government have, the Bali guys, they have a big pool of talented artists. And these artists are amazing. Right? I've seen it hand-drawn, very historical, very cultural, very unique. And the government wants to kind of build up the creative industry in Bali. Because everybody knows Bali is a big, big hub for tourism. But when COVID came, it destroyed the whole economy. And what happened next was the government was trying to find a way to support these people. And that's where during the NFT boom, the government found that, and they actually built a place called Bali Blockchain Center. It's the only one, I don't even know any state or country have a place called Blockchain Center, like officially, right? And they tried to educate people with NFTs and so on and so forth, and it was so hard because these people don't understand how to use IPFS. But honestly, it's very simple. They just draw the art, they press a button called inscribe, and they can sell. And by doing that, I work with like different part of projects to bring them over like Bitcoin Rails to collaborate. And the third part is, which is pretty cool. The government wants to leverage this artwork to create like a utility. We're not talking about tokens, we're talking about a real artwork, right? So the third part is what we are doing is with them is the government is going to curate all the artists that do amazing Balinese art and cultural history with videos, images, whatever. And then they're going to launch it in Ordinals, and if whoever buy these Ordinals in the future, they can actually come to Bali and they can get further discounts by using their restaurants, their hotels. So this is having art being used to get further discount to promote Bali as a creative industry and tourism at the same time. And because of this, we have different nations, because we are piloting this as well, right? Once this goes through, we are going to like Jakarta. We spoke with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture there, and like Indonesia, 136 million people. And then I got calls with other countries like in Sarawak. You can check my tweet. I met with the Deputy of State, so interested about what we're doing in Bali, and they want to say the same thing. And then say for Thailand, Vietnam, all these are kind of things that I'm trying to build on the outer scale of the Web3 space. Because I said it's so much easier to pitch ordinals of preservation compared to NFTs. It's more, yeah, it's easy.
And Toby, tell me about the OrdinalsBot API marketplace that's coming on.
Yeah, no. This is one of the products, like our team is always building products, which I love, but this is one of the products that I've been most excited by, because basically, to Naqib's point, right, I think what's great about Ordinals is it's bringing the creatives to Bitcoin, right? Like effectively, they can sit there. But basically, crypto is a peer-to-peer world, right? Like that's what it should be. But always, like the most lucrative business ends up being the marketplace, the exchange. You get your Binances, your OKXs, whatever, leaning into Ordinals, Magic Eden, whatever, right? And they're capturing a lot of the fee, but we think it's super important for all these creatives to be able to spin up their own marketplace. A bit like the CryptoPunks probably have the best version of this, right? Like back in the day, you can still go and if you've got enough money, buy one of those things, right? But like we've got a kind of seamless PSBT-based API marketplace, and with some of the more sophisticated inscription projects, we're going, look, launch on Magic Eden, launch on Gamma, launch on a centralized exchange if they're able to take your NFT. But basically, like it would be much better if we take a tiny fee and all of it goes to the creator, right? Like that's how crypto blockchain should be, and we're getting a ton of interest and demand in this. And then I think it's like, then basically you have lots of marketplaces all around the world if we can get it right, from own websites of the creator, and they can basically say to your community, you might prefer Magic Eden or whatever it is, but where we've done a lot of the inscriptions, but at the same time, it's great to have a shop window, a marketplace. So if you're in Bali, the person can effectively capture a lot of the revenue for the transactions on their art, effectively.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Robin, tell me how Liquidium's business model is improved via Ordinals compared to other lending models.
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier. I think Bitcoin, like if there's any cryptocurrency that is like considered money, it's Bitcoin. And that makes sense because like Bitcoin is the ultimate store of value, is the ultimate like the best layer of like storing value, transacting value, has a hard cap and stuff like that. And on all other chains, on all other lending platforms that are out there, they live on some other blockchains, right? I think that's one of the biggest differentiators is like, yes, you can have something like Aave and Compound and MakerDAO, where you have lending platforms and you can mint something like a stable coin and you can mint something like any like new asset that is there. But ultimately this money is being kept in the ecosystem, right? Like you don't see anybody using, like borrowing ETH and spending it somewhere. Whereas on Bitcoin, I think we have like a new ecosystem where this can change. We can actually have the people using DeFi applications and doing real world stuff with the money that they get from these DeFi applications. So, for example, one of our customers borrowed some Bitcoin to fix his car battery to go to work. That's something like he couldn't get a loan from his bank, so he just went to Liquidium and borrowed some Bitcoin and paid his car battery repair. So I think that's a beautiful use case. And then also, since all of the assets on Bitcoin, BRC20, Runes, Ordinals work in a similar way, we as a platform can offer loans on all kinds of assets on Bitcoin. So you can literally use anything as collateral and borrow against it. And I think that's also a new use case that you haven't seen often on other lending platforms. But I think it's mainly the fact about like using the money cryptocurrency for the loans, and then also having this like on the most secure and decentralized blockchain using DLCs, which is one of the most robust technologies that are there in crypto. You don't have smart contract risks or something like that. It's like on Bitcoin.
Amazing. Well, we're out of time, but thank you guys so much. Thank you, audience. That was great. Cheers.